Okay, good evening, namaskar, and salam alaikum. I am Ashok Garlapati from J&A Bharat HSE Foundation and J&A Global HSE Foundation. We welcome you for the 40th Outreach and Knowledge Transfer webinar on Safety 365 Digital Tools for HSE Management. And this is a very important topic for all our HSE professionals. Before we start, we just would like to give a brief introduction about our meetings. Kindly mute your microphone and raise the hand whenever you want to speak. Kindly switch off your camera because of the connectivity. You can post your queries, comments, suggestions in the chat box. And this meeting is being recorded for future references. And also kindly register your name, company, designation, phone, email ID in the chat box. And as you see on the screen there in the right side corner, there is a QR code which takes you to our knowledge hub. So you can connect with us all the time around the clock. And today's agenda is going to be in two parts. Part one will be briefly about our foundation. And part two will be the main topic of today, Safe 365, digital tools for HSE management. And the part one will be started with welcome remarks for founding trustees, Mr. Jeetu Patel, and followed by me. I will give the brief introduction about our foundation very shortly. Then we'll hand over to our speaker of the day, Mr. Jeetu.
Ashok ji, thank you for giving a good start. All I have to say is welcome to all of you, and in special, our keynote honored guest speaker, Mr. Bradstreet. We are very delighted to welcome him warmly, along with all the dignitaries who are anticipated to join us in very short period of time, and the delegates from our health, safety, environment fraternity. Very warm welcome on behalf of both Foundation J&A Bharat and J&A Global HSE Foundations. Everyone knows Ashok ji, Ashok Garlapati. He just completed his term of the president of BCSP, which is the Board of Certified Safety Professional, and he's been assigned a very responsible position in the same Board of Trustees and the Board of Directors as the senior advisor to the board. Very proud of him. He's also the fellow of American Society of Safety Professionals, as well as he has many fellowships around the world, including IOSH. Without going into too much detail, Ashok ji, floor is yours, and just orient the attendees about the foundations first, and then we proceed further.
Thank you, Mr. Jeetu, and appreciate your brief introduction. And for the benefit of Mr. Aditya, as well as our Anthony and other friends who are joined first time our OKT sessions, this is the world map. You see little blue flags there. These are the places where Mr. Jeetu and myself have really supported our HSE fraternity, and even in different parts of the world, either through the platform of ASSP or BCSP or IOSH. So we thought of doing much more to India, and this is the statistics from the ILO, International Labour Organization. Unfortunately, the global deaths related to industrial accidents are very high in India. And there are so many organizations are there in India, but the concept of the foundation is new. So we have ASSP Foundation, BCSP Foundation, but we do not have any such professional HSE professional foundation in India. So we wanted to bring this concept to India, and we started this foundation virtually because of the COVID during those days on 25th March 2022. Further, based on the request from other friends, so we also established a J&A Global HSE Foundation as well in November 2022. So basically, ours is not a membership organization. It's a purely charity support organization. And we engage with the professional organizations, corporate organizations, like today we are engaging with the Aditya's organization and academic institutions and individuals and philanthropists. Our mission, vision, and objectives are very, very simple, just to support our HSE profession as well as the HSE professionals. We support in advancing occupational safety and health profession, like today's OKT is related to that, to support and promote occupational safety health as a career choice among students, to inspire and develop the leaders, to provide education and developmental opportunities. Recognizing the individuals is also one of the activity we do it. We also do a lot of training as well as academic, consultation process in collaboration with the universities and institutions. We do have MOUs with the similar, having the organizations having the similar objectives. And as you see on the right side, there are so many activities we do it. Our editorial board chief, Mr. Madhu NC, has designed this particular step-by-step activity. We started with the professional development grants. We have the grant for the students. We have grant for the professionals. We have the recognition programs. We have the monthly outreach sessions. We have the Knowledge Hub WhatsApp group. And we have an industrial accident victim family support grant. We have a student scholarship program for the medical healthcare students. And we have a social media channels supporting the profession. And most importantly, recently we introduced the e-newsletter called Give Back. And we also have our websites with a lot of knowledge information there. Recently, we added a web page specifically focusing on the artificial intelligence. We have our volunteer Keyur Pandya is a AI subject matter expert. Every Friday, he posts one AI related topic into our knowledge hub that goes into our website. And that's about our foundation in brief. And this is our newsletter for the May 2025. Basically, Mr. Madhu NC, our chief editor of this newsletter. These newsletters are available in our website, and very, very interesting topics is there. This time we focused on the World Day for Safety and Health at Work 2025. It was observed on April 28 all across the world, and we focused on that theme. And there are very interesting articles are there. And this is a tribute to Mr. Thaneja, as a DL Shah Trust, one of the foundation in Mumbai. They supported our foundation as well as our profession. And there are so many interesting articles are there. And and you see on the right side, there is a very good initiative by one of the teacher in India, invented the smart helmet. I went through this article. I really request Mr. Madhu NC to invite her for our OKT session in the future. So very, very interesting articles are available in this magazine. And so we have a 30-page magazine, so much of a very good intent is there. Most importantly, we are having one concept in this magazine called the Hall of Fame. The people who are volunteers, who are really supporting our organizations, who are supporting our profession, we recognize them on monthly basis. So on the left side, you see Dr. Prodhutur Lakshminarayan. He is our chair for the health and well-being. He has been recognized during the month of May 2025. On the right side, you see those two youngster individuals. They are the people who are actively participating in our knowledge hub by participating in the daily quizzes or asking the questions and other things. So we just want to encourage the people. And we also announce all the new upcoming sessions. And today we are having this wonderful session today. So there are so many interesting articles are there in that. So kindly go to our website and check it. That's very important thing. It's a knowledge-based website. So you can have a wonderful session there. With that, I would like to hand over to Mr. Aditya to introduce our speaker of the day today. And Mr. Aditya is a area vice president from ISOT Pune. And I request Mr. Aditya to take over the session and introduce and hand over back to Mr. Anthony. Before we hand over to Aditya, this is a small thank you card from our foundation to Dr. Anthony. It's 1 a.m. in the night in Australia. He has woken up for us, and he's sharing his knowledge. It's absolutely, truly appreciated, Dr. Anthony. Of course, we have the vote of thanks by our trustee, but I just want to show you here because we truly respect your support as well as the participation. So, Mr. Aditya, please share your screen and introduce the topic as well as the speaker. Then Anthony will take over.
Okay.
You can share your screen.
Yes, I'm just doing that. Okay. So before I begin, I would like to say a big thank you to Madhu MC for introducing me to J&A Foundation, and for J&A Foundation for having us here, for giving us the opportunity to speak to you all. And so I would like to first introduce my company, which is ITIS Sports and Safety. ITIS has partnered with Safe 365 a couple of months back to bring Safe 365 to India and bring about a digital change, which Anthony will soon tell us about. So briefly about ITIS. So ITIS, we have been in the business since the last 12 to 13 years. We started with supplying safety and life-saving equipments such as amphibious boats, recently got into water drones as well as rescue equipments. And a few years back, we realized there was a big training gap. People wanted the equipment, but they don't know how to use it or how to actually use them in the rescue scenarios or the safety scenarios. So my founder started an organization called Indian Rescue Academy. And over the last 8 years, we've trained around 65,000 individuals, being Asia's largest training management provider, right from the NDRF to all state SDRFs, especially in the northern and the southern states, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka being one of our strongholds, where all the SDRF cadets and the fire departments are trained at the Indian Rescue Academy for all water-related rescue and basic first aid trainings. Also, recently we started an IT division where I came in, and where now we are on getting Safe 365 as well here to, not just train the people, but also track and monitor, assess, and gradually improve on where an organization stands in the health and safety departments. So, I'll be handing it over to Anthony now. It's a basic screenshot of what all we've done, all the trainings we conduct, the rescue we've taken part in. Mahakumbh also is where we had our boats and our cadets who were stationed looking after the water rescue for all the 45 days for the Mahakumbh, which was active. And yes, this is basically about ITIS, and I would like to hand it over to Anthony now from Safe 365. Like Mr. Ashok said, he's up at 1 a.m. and giving us his time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adi. I really appreciate that introduction. And if I could just start by thanking Jitu and Ashok and J&A Global for having us. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak to you today about some of the work that we're doing with ITIS in India, as well as around the world with Safe 365. Today I'll be talking to you a little bit about safety culture. What safety culture is, and most importantly, how Safe 365 are undertaking what we call safety culture assessments to help health and safety professionals around the world to do their job more effectively, more efficiently, to understand more clearly a holistic view of how their health and safety systems are working within organizations, particularly complex organizations, high-risk organizations, and ones where they may have quite mature health and safety systems already, but they may still be suffering from high rates of injuries, incidents, and accidents, which we believe safety culture may hold a number of the keys for them to further reduce incidents, accidents, fatalities within the workplace. As we heard at the very start there from Ashok, some of the statistics globally around industrial accidents are purely too high. And we're certainly committed to supporting health and safety professionals, as well as executives and senior leaders within organizations around the world, to better understand their organizations and better understand what can be done to try to reduce the risk. In most cases, very sustainably, efficiently, and in a lot of cases without significant financial investment, to try to take advantage of a lot of the social factors that occur within organizations, to try to increase worker engagement, worker knowledge, cultural, behavioral, strategic alignment objectives, which all don't necessarily cost a huge amount of money. However, they can have a profound effect on poor safety outcomes and the reduction of poor safety outcomes. So that's a little bit about what I'll be aiming to talk to you about today. And I'll also share with you some of the insights that our system and our data has been able to provide that may be useful to you as health and safety professionals around the world, to use as part of your day-to-day engagements and interactions and discussions with your senior leaders. So look, without further ado, I might firstly just give you a brief introduction into Safe 365 and who we are, what we do, and what our mission is as part of the health and safety community. So we are originally a company from New Zealand and Australia, down in the Southern Hemisphere. Very close alignment and allegiances with our colleagues at ITIS in the subcontinent in India. We really came to working in health and safety coming from a background in emergency management. So I personally worked in emergency management for many years. And in Australia, I was what we call a lifeguard. So I worked on the coastline of Australia and our beaches in Australia, which are very inherently hazardous, dangerous, dynamic environments. For those of you who may be familiar with the Australian coastline, we have very large waves, very strong rip currents. We have lots of animals and things that bite and sting, and it can be quite hazardous for people who like to go to the beach and recreate, which is a popular pastime in Australia. We have, on a busy day, hundreds of thousands of people come to our beaches to swim and to recreate. On those beaches and in those environments, we don't have very many regulations or rules or laws about what people can do in the ocean. People are free to swim where they want or surf where they want, and do what they want at the beach. So as a lifeguard, we're tasked with the job of trying to keep people safe and to prevent drownings in that environment, which is inherently dangerous and hazardous. But we don't have many rules as to how people have to behave in those environments. So by virtue of that, our lifeguards in Australia have developed a very keen sense of risk management. And more so, we've developed a very proactive approach to risk management. We're constantly monitoring those crowds and monitoring the people and their behaviors. And when we foresee that somebody might get themselves into trouble in that dangerous environment, we proactively engage with them to try to reduce the risk and prevent that poor safety outcome from occurring, potentially a drowning. We try to stop that person from getting themselves into trouble. And it may be from exposing themselves to a hazard. It may be from continuing to do something beyond their physical capabilities, continuing to swim or swimming out of their depth, but we proactively engage. That kind of mindset about proactive safety is very much ingrained into our DNA. And for me and my colleagues at Safe 365, growing up in Australia from a very, very young age, that's how we were taught about risk management, that being proactive was just the way you should be. What we found as we went out into the world and went into various businesses and different roles, our observation was that approach, whilst native and normal for us, was foreign and rare as we worked around the world in various industries, various roles. So we were considering, well, what were all of the good things that helped develop that organisational culture within the lifeguards and the emergency services within Australia? And how might we be able to foster and promote the development of those types of cultures in businesses around the world? And that really led us as safety and risk management professionals to consider the field that we call safety culture. And safety culture as a field is probably something that as safety professionals, you all would have heard about. It's not a new field. It's a discipline and a domain within the safety profession that's existed for almost 40 years. It developed primarily following the Chernobyl nuclear accidents in the Ukraine or the former USSR. Following that incident, the International Atomic Energy Agency undertook really significant studies and investigations, and they termed and coined this phrase of safety culture as a means of looking more holistically at all of the factors that contribute to safety within an organization, particularly those beyond the typical processes, policies, safety systems, management systems, to encapsulate a more holistic view of all of those aspects that contribute to safety performance in an organization. Thinking about worker knowledge, manager knowledge, director knowledge, cultures, behaviors, strategic alignment, worker engagement, the collection of data from workers and insights from workers, and then the analysis, synthesis, and utilization of that data by management professionals. So that profession has existed for 40 years. And what we saw was a small number of companies that were supporting businesses to practice safety culture within their organizations. But there was a very, very high barrier to entry. So a number of you may be aware of some of those companies that do practice safety culture in our profession. Companies like DuPont Safety Solutions were really pioneers in this field, and to this day have a very strong presence around the world, particularly in the Middle East, where some of you may be joining us from. And they've done a very good job in that regard. But they've been very consistent and stable in their approach, very consultancy based, which is quite expensive for most organizations. And that provides a very high barrier to entry. So what we saw globally was a profession that might be very helpful to try to support organizations to improve their safety culture and develop their proactive safety culture. But not very many organizations were accessing that profession and that knowledge. It was really limited to sort of petrochemical, heavy industries, utilities, in some cases transport, particularly aviation. But it was a very long-standing, small number of companies that were supporting the achievement of this proactive safety culture. So at Safe 365, what we saw the opportunity to do was to try to provide greater access to this body of knowledge and these methods for measuring and better understanding and monitoring safety culture by the use of technology. So that's really what our company does. We are fundamentally a technology company that focuses on measuring safety within organizations and supporting organizations through our technology to take simple steps to sustainably and continuously improve on their safety culture over time. I'll talk to you about the implications of that as we go through today's session. But what we know is that our approach has been very successful around the world, trying to provide greater access and in many cases democratizing access to safety culture knowledge and information and methods. We now support over 10,000 companies around the world. We have a very strong presence in Australia, New Zealand and Asia Pacific, as well as in the Middle East, and through the UK and Europe. We have an emerging presence in the Americas, and by working with our partner ARDI and ITIS, we are very hopeful that we can have a great impact by supporting workers and health and safety professionals in India through our partnership with ITIS. So that's partly why I'm very pleased and happy to be with you tonight to talk to you about what we do and how we might be able to help you all as part of your roles as health and safety professionals working in India and the Middle East. Like I said, our goal is to try to make workplaces safer by promoting that proactive safety culture through the access to safety culture technology. And our goal globally is to try to provide that support and see more than 100 million employees globally working in a proactive risk environment. So that's very much our goal. We are a values-based company. We're very steadfast in trying to achieve our objectives. And we're very pleased and hopeful that we have built a strong network of advocates and health and safety professionals globally who use our technology, but more importantly, collaborate with us and collaborate with each other to try to improve health and safety performance, as you all are today and as part of this forum with J&A Global. So I'm very pleased to be here and supporting your objective, which is very much aligned to our objective at Safe 365. So I might first of all talk to you about the benefits of undertaking safety culture programs and why organizations choose to participate in a safety culture program and participate with us. And we do find that we have great success and great partnerships with very large, very complex organizations. That's notwithstanding that we can support smaller organizations. We can and we do, clearly. But we very much have a unique opportunity to support very large and complex organizations because the utilization of our technology can be scaled across complex organizations to help them reveal not only their overall organizational culture, but their subcultures within organizations. Particularly across supply chains as well, where contractors and suppliers may introduce risk into that organizational ecosystem. So that's very much one of our key selling features for our approach. And I'll explain to you how we do that a little bit more through today's session. Secondly, we see a lot of benefit for organizations around better communicating and engaging with their leaders. I don't think I'd be too far off the mark if I would suggest everyone on this call from time to time may have some difficulty getting meaningful engagement from their senior leadership teams or their executive teams or their board members around health and safety within an organization. For too long, health and safety in most organizations has been seen as very much a cost center within organizations in terms of having to expend money to achieve compliance or to meet regulatory outcomes, which although very important, haven't necessarily been a huge focus of those boards who may be more focused on profits and efficiency within the organisation. What our program does is we definitely try to engage with those members at a senior executive leadership level. We try to frame safety quantitatively, and we try to demonstrate to them the relationship between a positive, proactive safety culture and a reduction in poor safety outcomes that actually deliver an efficiency dividend for their business. So trying to flip the language to be very business focused and try to frame and describe the investment in safety culture and a commitment to safety for workers as not only a moral, ethical objective, but more importantly, as a financial dividend and a profit center and profit-making opportunity for businesses to increase the efficiency of their operations by having safer systems of work in place. Thirdly, we also help businesses build trusted relationships with workers, which is incredibly important, particularly as the world becomes more globalized and the competition for skilled workers around the world becomes more important. The reputation and the commitment to safety of any organization as an employer can be the difference between being an employer of choice and getting top talent globally and not being an employer of choice and not getting the best talent and therefore giving up some of the potential benefits of having that highly skilled, highly engaged, highly motivated workforce that once again improves business efficiency and outcomes. So that's another reason why we support businesses to better engage with their workforce. And in many places around the world, we are supporting a higher level of performance of health and safety beyond compliance levels that they may have been focused on. I'll explain this very, very simply because I was a former safety regulator in Australia. And Australia has very high health and safety regulatory standards. However, when we are writing laws or legislation or regulation for safety, we very much are never implementing what we would consider to be best practice. What we're doing is we're balancing out our objective, the minimum achievable standard to implement as part of the regulations, and then best practice at the top end. And we're typically balancing out what is achievable within the economy for businesses, what's reasonable for those businesses to be expected to implement across the economy. And we typically end up somewhere in the middle, if not towards the lower end, as to what we actually put in our regulation and our legislation. So it very much becomes closer to a minimum standard. Now, regulations have a very important role in raising the floor of standards and safety within a society and an economy. So I'm certainly not being trivial or dismissive of the role and the importance of regulations and compliance. However, in so many countries around the world where they do have strong health and safety regulations and standards, the impact of that on businesses has been that instead of aiming for best practice, so many organizations have aimed at compliance, which is leaving an awful lot of safety performance on the table that they haven't achieved. And that's really what we help organizations unlock as part of our program by measuring their safety performance against best practice and providing a pathway and a roadmap for organizations to get from where they are to where they want to be that is considering compliance along the way, but not aiming at compliance as the final objective and destination. Finally, that's what we were just talking about. Trying to get organizations from a baseline level of safety culture, which we help them measure, helping them set an objective for where they want to be, and developing continuous improvement plans for how to achieve that. That's very much part of what we do at Safe 365. So what I might do is next just talk to you very briefly about that relationship that I spoke to you about between safety culture and poor safety outcomes. So when we measure safety culture, as we do in our platform that I'll talk to you about momentarily, we are certainly encouraging and aiming organisations to try to continuously improve their safety culture. You can see what that safety culture measurement, and in our case, we measure it through a term called a safety culture maturity index. So it's an indexed score based on the collection of a range of evidence and inputs in our framework. And we're aiming for that safety culture maturity index to increase over time. We know the relationship between safety culture and an improvement in safety culture correlates to a reduction in poor safety outcomes. And that's a very simplistic, idealistic diagram that you can see on the screen here. So when we talk about the benefits of that relationship, we talk to organisations in terms of an improved safety performance, a reduction in harm within the workplace. But we also talk to them, really importantly, about what that reduction in poor safety outcomes means to them for business performance, in terms of a reduction in workers' compensation claims or investigation costs, or a number of externalities associated with poor accidents and injuries. But it also adds to reduced absenteeism. It adds to operational efficiencies through the maintenance of staff and the maintaining of staff and the retention of staff, which all equals a better commercial outcome. And for staff that are in the workplace and are happy and are healthy, it goes to a better brand positioning for that organisation in a very competitive marketplace, which is all trying to drive organisations towards performance beyond compliance, as I explained to you a second ago. So what does that look like practically for a number of our key clients? We know overall the relationship between an improved safety performance and reduced poor safety outcomes results in a relationship of around 10% improvement of safety culture maturity index, typically corresponds to between a 6 and 8% improvement in operational efficiency that can be quantified within a business. So that relationship stands true for operational efficiency. But when we think about it purely in terms of a reduction of harm, which is our objective as an organisation, you can see for some of these case studies on the screen, the relationship between that X and Y axes. So for Heathrow Airport, a very large aviation hub in the United Kingdom, within their own team, they increased their safety culture maturity index by 5%, and they saw a reduction in harm in terms of lost time injury frequency rates, which was their chosen metric. They saw that reduced by 29%. Furthermore, they then chose to roll out that our solution across their supply chain. And across their supply chain, they saw a 3% improvement in safety culture maturity index over 2 years, which then correlated to a 26% reduction in harm through LTIFR. Not necessarily through the reduction of incidents and incident rates, but through a reduction of severity of incidents, which was a really interesting case study for us. Similarly, Southern Cross Care, which is a very large health provider in Australia, they saw a significant increase in safety culture of 30% over 3 years, which saw a corresponding reduction in harm of 34%. And they made significant savings in their insurance costs based on that performance. And similarly, across small and medium-sized businesses in New Zealand, we deployed the platform across 600 businesses, they saw an averaging overall increase in safety culture of 20% and a reduction in workers' compensation claims through that insurance scheme of 34%. So they're all just demonstrating that simple relationship between an increase in safety culture results in a reduction in claims and harm. So I've been talking theoretically up till now about this thing called safety culture. But I'd like to explain a little bit more about what we mean by safety culture and how we measure safety culture within our technology. What you can see on the screen here, pardon me, I do apologise. It's just after approaching 2 a.m. Where I am in Sydney in Australia at the moment. So I am having a wee sip of coffee every once in a while. So I apologise for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Enjoy your coffee.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But let's have a chat about how we measure safety culture and what we mean by safety culture. So in our program, we conduct what's called a maturity assessment. So it's not an audit. It's not looking at black and white performance of a range of factors. We're very much interested in the grey in between. Not are you doing something, but how well are you doing something? How well is that penetrating beyond your processes and systems into your values, your behaviours, your leadership, your engagement with workers and managers across your organisation? And all of those factors together deliver us our safety culture framework. We're assessing 82 elements, each on a maturity curve. And you can see those 82 elements represented in this diagram on the screen as one of these individual rays. We call this this visualization of safety culture our Safe 365 starburst. And the starburst is intended to be a very simple visualization of an organization's holistic safety culture. How are they doing all of the things that they need to do to try to prevent and reduce incidents, accidents, and poor safety outcomes within their business? And each of those 82 elements are split into 10 modules or domains relating to safety culture. You can see each of those modules and domains listed around the outside of our framework. And I'll just talk about these really briefly. So first of all, we need to make sure that everyone across our business has a strong grounded knowledge of safety and safety practices and systems and risk management within their organization. So we measure that across our first three modules, going from 12 o'clock clockwise. Firstly, being our directors' knowledge module. So we engage with the directors and those with organizational control and strategic control over the business. So in the standards, you might know these as your top managers or top directors. We then look at those with operational management responsibilities of the business. So we call that management knowledge, and we investigate how they are trained and how they are trained in terms of their safety systems, and how they practice that knowledge in practice. Thirdly, we then get into workers and contractors within the business and understand their levels of knowledge around safety. All of that provides a foundation for what people know about their systems and their processes and their expectations and their roles and responsibilities for safety. We then look into health and safety management systems. For health and safety professionals on the call, health and safety management systems is probably the most highly aligned unit to the international standards and the practicing of OH&S safety management systems in practice. So ISO 45001 is most highly aligned to that single unit down here. We then look into verification and audit. Like I said, our approach is not an audit. It's not a yes or no, black and white assessment of a specific range of requirements. For example, a regulatory compliance audit. That will give you a very targeted, specific understanding of your compliance levels against local regulation, legislation that can vary from place to place. Our assessment is a global assessment. It's a strategic assessment. So we are undertaking an assessment of how you do your verification and audit activities, both internally and externally, to apply what we call the 3 layers of defense, or 3 layers of defense in risk management. We then look at your emergency preparedness capacity and capability within the organization. We then look at how you're collecting health and safety data, because we know health and safety data is important to understand the performance of your health and safety system. Then we look at how you're using that data to make better decisions, which is in management reporting. Finally, around the top of our framework, we have 2 further modules that very much focus on our frontline workers. Firstly, we're looking at worker and contractor engagement. What's the relationship between your top managers, and your frontline workers, to not only engage and talk to from the top down about safety, but also provide that feedback mechanism from workers back up, so that how much do workers have a say and a view and an influence on safety processes and perspectives, which is very much aligned to contemporary health and safety practices that you're all probably very familiar with. So things like Safety 2.0 or New View Safety, or workers done versus workers imagined. All of these principles and evidence-based practices are encapsulated and assessed as part of that module. Finally, our last module relates to culture and behaviours, which is looking into alignment between workers' processes or business processes and work as done amongst the workforce. What's the genuine perception of the workforce towards health and safety as part of their system? So that collectively is how we measure safety culture. We go out into workplaces and we conduct things like focus groups, surveys, observational activities, document reviews, data reviews, and we try to inform our framework. We need to come to a determination of maturity across 5 or 6 levels for each one of these 82 elements for that part of the business or the business overall, to inform our framework. That individual assessment of each of those 82 elements is then aggregated in our technology to deliver what we call a safety culture maturity index. That index score is the number you can see in the middle of that starburst. So in this case, an index score of 51%. So what does 51% mean? 51% relates to our safety culture maturity framework. For those of you in the profession who have worked in safety culture before, you may be familiar with frameworks such as the Bradley curve or Hudson's ladder regarding safety culture maturity. All of these frameworks are very similar, and our framework is very much based on those classic safety culture frameworks. We don't want to introduce a new framework in that regard. We do want the whole sector and all professionals working towards a good, solid understanding of the same framework. For those that it may be new to on the call, I'll just give you a brief introduction into what this framework looks like and how it works. So right down the very bottom of our framework, in our case, an index score of less than 19%. These kinds of scores would generically reflect an organisation that may have made a start to try to think about safety, but they're lacking very basic safety systems, processes, and behaviours. So the classic stat frameworks may call this level what we call pathological. So they may have potentially a disregard of safety strategically and culturally within the organization. As a business looking to support our clients to improve their safety culture, we made a decision not to call our clients pathological, which is potentially offensive to them and their senior leadership teams if they are trying to improve but may just be starting on their journey. So we call that level early days in our framework. But in classical literature, you might see that as called pathological. Our second level in the framework is what we call reactive. And a reactive safety culture is one that is very inherently common in the workplace, particularly in a lot of developing countries where we do work around the world. Reactive organizations may have some basic systems in place. So they may have a safety management system in place, for example. However, that system may be in paper only, and it may not be translating into behaviors and practices that are observable across that business. Typically, these types of organizations may share a commitment to improve and act on safety, but they do so very reactively. After an incident occurs, they intervene, they investigate, but they're not committed to or having practices in place to proactively prevent those incidents from occurring in the first place. So that's, in our framework, a score between 20 and 39% typically describes those types of organizations. In the middle level of our framework, we have a level called systematic. Systematic represents an organization that may have really good systems in place. They may have good processes in place to manage safely, but those practices might not be consistently applied to their business. So that's where they've still got room for improvement. To most commonly describe this level in our framework, this level may include organizations that are actually tied to prevailing regulations and compliance standards. It's not uncommon for us to assess lots of organizations that may hold ISO accreditation, but they're actually still in this middle level of performance in our safety culture frameworks. Globally, this is where we see the majority of businesses in the developed world. Like I said before, because most organizations in those developing countries are tied and anchored to compliance and regulation and standards, that's where we see most organizations sit in our global data. And I'll share that global data later on, and you'll be able to see how the curve and the distribution curve is very anchored towards about 50% or 52% is actually the global average of our 3,000 organizations currently actively using this framework to measure their safety culture. From what I spoke to you about in my introduction around our objectives and trying to support organizations to go beyond compliance into a proactive or a leading safety culture, that's where we see our next level. So a score of above 60% typically demonstrates an organization that is well above the curve. They're above the average safety culture performance. And they're starting to get really strong alignment, not only in their systems and processes, but in their behaviors and how their workers and managers and directors are approaching and understanding and practicing safety within their organization. So that's really what we aim for most of our organizations to achieve. As a minimum, beyond 60%. Once they go beyond 60%, they can start striving and aiming towards a leading safety culture, which is above 80%. I will be very honest, in our framework and for the thousands of companies that we have assessed, there are very, very few organizations that have achieved a leadership safety culture under our assessment processes. It's less than 2% of all companies that we have assessed, of the thousands that we've assessed. So a very high standard to achieve for those types of organizations, but certainly an aspirational goal for the leaders of most organizations that get into proactive safety culture. So, like I said before, I apologize, I'll have another sip. Thank you. A typical new start client into our framework who may be based on compliance and have systems in place to measure their systems against compliance is typically going to come in the 40s or the 50s in our framework. So an important aspect to understand in that organizations aren't always just aiming to get 100%. Aiming for 100% in our framework is not common at all, and it's actually not necessarily beneficial as a belief coming into our approach and our framework. We actually need to start recognizing that 50% is a normal performance for most organizations in our framework. So they don't get response shock when they do see their results, and they might not be what they were expecting up front. What is a key benefit for our approach to measuring safety culture within organizations is quite different to those traditional safety culture providers that you may be familiar with in the workplace. Pardon me. A lot of traditional consultancy-based safety culture organizations and companies who support health and safety professionals, and they do very well in this regard, so don't take this as a criticism, but what they inherently do typically is they view and assess a business as a monolith. So they undertake a broad sweeping assessment of the business, and they typically provide recommendations for the business to apply across the whole business. What our belief is, and what the literature would suggest, is that within any business, there is not one single safety culture. There are a range of subcultures that develop within a business. Now, you might say, well, within that business, they're all operating under the same health and safety management system and the same health and safety policy. So therefore, the culture and the performance should be the same, because those policies and processes should, in theory, be consistently applied across the business. Certainly from our experience and what we've seen within businesses, that's not the case. The existence of a consistent policy and process and safety management system can vary wildly in its implementation and its practice within the business. So what our approach does is, by leveraging technology, we make the process of measuring safety culture far more efficient and effective to be able to spend less money in most cases and deploy the system across a business. It might be across different divisions or geographies or suppliers in a critical supply chain. And we're able to reveal to health and safety professionals and senior leaders or boards or audit and risk committees how varied safety culture and performance can be across the organization. And in this scenario, from what you can see on the screen here, there could be 10 business units within a business that we assess. Very readily, anyone on this call would be able to say, I'm very interested in what's happening within this division that scored 24% compared to these divisions that may have scored 63 or 67%. And in this case, you may like to understand what's happening in that division more. So you may be able to deploy the system further within that division or within their supply chain to further understand and target what is actually happening. What are the factors that are contributing towards safety culture performing either poorly or very effectively and efficiently within the business? So you're able to then make smarter strategic decisions around the deployment of resources, the deployment of support through your business partnering approaches within the business. And you're also able to target what needs to be done to improve safety culture and safety performance, potentially beyond a continued, what we commonly see as an overinvestment in health and safety systems and processes, compared to some of the potentially more beneficial social or general capability improvements that might be more useful for the business, potentially around worker knowledge, worker engagement, or cultures and behaviours. So we really aim to provide businesses with better data to make better insights and have better insights into why their business may be performing at a certain level and what could be done to improve that performance and improve that safety culture, not only across the whole organization, where our platform aggregates all of the data up to give you a strategic view of the organization's performance, but what can be done at a more targeted level and enable a greater degree of accountability to be given to and monitored within those divisions to improve their safety performance across the business. What we know is that if each of those business units has a targeted, tailored plan for continuous improvement in place that recognises where they are in their health and safety journey, we can see that sustainable improvement over time within each of those business units, and then that aggregates up to the overall safety culture maturity index for the business. And all of this can be readily incorporated into your board and audit and risk committee reporting processes, because what we are talking about here in terms of our 82 individual elements is effectively what you might already know as your lead indicators. So what are the indicators and the data that you might be able to provide to your board to demonstrate all of the things that you are undertaking to prevent incidents and injuries from occurring, which is what we call lead data, as opposed to purely reporting to them on the incidents and accidents that have already occurred, which is what we call lag data. It's important for decision makers to have both. What are we doing to prevent incidents, and how are we performing and improving in that regard, which our system provides, and combine that with your safety performance. How many incidents have occurred, and what is the trend and the trajectory there? When we provide both sides of that equation to our leaders and our decision makers, they get a very simple understanding of if our safety culture maturity index is improving, our safety performance should be decreasing. If not, they ask questions, which is exactly the role of board directors, audit and risk committee members, and what they should be undertaking to practice and execute their roles and their responsibilities as directors effectively and efficiently. So very much our tool is designed to help those key decision makers to take a data-driven improvement approach. Because I'm sure if any of you have been directors and sit on boards of companies, they're presented with an awful lot of data to make decisions. That's the role of directors and senior leaders within an organization. Our process provides them with the information and the data to try to make better decisions. And that's what we enable boards and executives to clearly understand where the organization sits, where it wants to be, and how it can achieve those objectives over time. That process, when properly begun, begins to contribute towards a behavioral change within the organization, from top management all the way through to frontline workers, where they begin collaborating. They get a consistency of what we call safety language, or a common language for how we describe all of these things that safety professionals might be trying to achieve within an organization. But we also enable ownership and accountability for those safety outcomes to be placed at a business unit level, which enables scaling and sustainable improvement within an organization. It's not all the responsibility of the health and safety department to improve safety across the business. It's a shared responsibility between the health and safety department with technical specialist knowledge and individual supervisors, managers, and workers who have a responsibility to improve safety within their business unit as well. And our process facilitates that in a very sustainable, achievable, economically viable manner. And the outcome of both of those processes, like we described, is enhanced commercial outcomes. So we're reducing claims and associated costs with incidents, accidents by tracking safety culture and measuring it against lag metrics and your health and safety performance. The process does reduce your regulatory exposure as well. So the risk of prosecution or regulatory exposure is reduced by improving your safety culture and demonstrating that commitment to continuous improvement. And finally, as I've said a few times, in the process of doing that, you realize stronger commercial performance goals, which is really important in our process and our framework. So I've talked to you a little bit so far about the theory behind our approach and how we do it. But what we also really stress is that our digital tool is one piece of the puzzle to help measure safety culture. But we still need to go into a business and support them in their journey of implementing that technology and measuring their safety culture and collecting all of the data and evidence that they need to inform their assessment within our technology. And in that regard, I lead a team of health and safety professionals globally who work with organizations to implement our technology. In India, we have our strong partnership with ITIS, represented by Aditya, who will be able to support and undertake that with me and my team's support in India as we move forward and gain some new clients in that regard. And in this process, we have a very simple framework for how we work with every client, which we call our PMII approach. So we go through a process of planning out our program and our activities in partnership with health and safety professionals and leaders, board members, senior leadership teams within organizations. We then undertake the measurement phase. Like I said before, we collect our data through focus groups, surveys, observational activities, document and data analysis. And then we analyze the data in our technology. And our technology has the capacity to develop insights reports at a click. So it will analyze the data and help present to you what are the priorities that you need to focus on over the near term within your organization. We also provide what we call benchmark data. Oh, yes.
Anthony, before going forward, we would like to have 2 minutes to go. And this time we have go for question and answers first. Okay.
I'm sorry, how long do we have to go?
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. No worries at all. That's all good. Very good. Very good. Well, I'll jump through very quickly to talk to you really quickly about the results and how we can use our data globally. So all of that data that we collect on individual elements and modules in our framework that we spoke about, we're able to actually use that data to provide benchmarking data. So we can talk to an organization not only about how you perform against our framework, but how you are performing against your peer organizations in your sector or against all organizations that are undertaking our assessment globally. So like I said, at the moment, we have a data set of, it's actually approaching 3,000 organizations globally who are currently actively using our system to improve their safety culture. And the global average safety culture maturity index in that framework is 52%. You can see on this graph here, up at the higher end, we have an average score of approaching 58% for the mining, tourism, and utilities sectors. They're our higher performing sectors. And then right down the bottom here, near 40%, we have IT and media, arts and recreation, and public services, who are not as highly performing. But what we also do is we actually analyze that data globally to look at trends in the global health and safety systems. And we're able to deliver some insights. And we produced last year a report which interrogated our global data set of benchmarking data to look at some of the global trends for what's happening in safety culture. And I'll share a link to that report in the chat momentarily. And I'd encourage you all to have a look at that. Because some of that data may be very helpful and useful for you all as health and safety professionals to better engage with your leaders. For example, a few quick insights from that report is firstly, director and management knowledge are actually some of the lower performing modules within our framework globally. And without good, solid knowledge amongst our directors and managers regarding health and safety, we're going to struggle to convince them on the value of further investment in health and safety. So that we see as a real strategic priority for health and safety professionals globally. We also know that globally, risk tolerance and an understanding and application of risk tolerance within businesses is actually one of the lowest performing elements in our framework. And without a good understanding of what is an acceptable risk and what is not an acceptable risk, once again, we see that as a real strategic challenge to the furtherment of health and safety. Finally, probably the last one that I will share with you very quickly is I did mention to you that most organizations were anchored towards tier 3 in our framework. And you can see that in this diffusion of innovation. So 81% of our companies are within tier 3, 7.6% are within tier 4 proactive, and a smaller percentage still is in tier 5 leadership. So we're certainly aiming to support all of those organizations to primarily go from tier 2 to tier 3 and tier 3 to tier 4 under our continuous improvement model. And we're very much working with all of those organizations globally. And I'm sharing a little subset of those organizations here to get us started. I might well finish up there and hand it back to Jitu and Ashok. More than happy to answer any questions you might have. And I thank you all for your attendance and listening of that session. Hopefully it has been useful for you all. And we're more than happy to speak to you further.
Yeah. Yes, sir. A very good, excellent presentation about your audit services. And every now the time for you to put out the questions and type your questions on chat box so that I can know Mr. Anthony will address that one. Please go ahead. Anybody wants any clarification, please chat on our screen.
Just for your reference, whilst people might be thinking of questions, I've just dropped a quick link in the chat to that report that I was just talking about. So I'd encourage you all to have a look at that report and see if there is some useful insights in there that you might be able to use as part of your discussions within your organizations.
Yeah. Participants, any questions from our side? In fact, I'm congratulating you and Anthony because there is no dropout in the participant. Everybody is stable listening to you.
I'm sorry, Madhu. I apologize. I missed that.
See, there is no dropout in numbers of the participants. Very stable.
Oh, that's good to hear.
They're focusing on you, first of all.
Oh, well, wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone, for staying with me through to the end. I really appreciate that. That's great.
Yep.
Very good.
Madhuji, if you allow me, I'll be glad to share. There is no question, but I can share some takeaways as more like concluding remarks, if you allow me.
Yeah, please, Jitu.
Mr. Anthony Bradstreet, the presentation you just made totally, fully in justifying your position of Chief Customer Officer, providing your company, providing the knowledge and services to almost, or maybe even over 9,000 companies to 47 countries, covering almost 100 million employees, which is a phenomenal, very impressive number. And in this service that your company provides is to help industries in providing proactive risk management. And that is through the not only just the technology, but also monitoring activities and making corrective actions as needed. Very, very vital. And in addition to that, what was impressive to me is that amongst many other things, for aiming for safety culture, you go beyond compliance. It's not just the requirement of government authority asking you, but you go beyond because that shows you care for the employee. At the same time, all that you backed up with some examples that you exhibited, humongous airport at Heathrow, as well as some healthcare industries, and also phenomenal number of insurers in your nation. I, as an old man, remember in early 80s, we had 13 elements. Thereafter, we added some more elements like BBS and management of change and mechanical integrity and so on and so forth. Your company are now covering 82 elements across utilizing 10 modules. This is extremely useful and very, very heart-lifting. In total, in last word is, your presentation was extremely informative, valuable for its relevance to industries of all discipline. Really an outstanding presentation, and you deserve the Ashokji already had displayed the certificate of appreciation from our two foundations. So Madhuji, thank you for letting me speak and share the takeaway values.
Thank you, Ujjini, for your kind words and encouraging Mr. Anthony and Aditya also. Actually, there are two questions are here in chat box, Anthony. Now, what is
Yes.
how do you convert the quality data while indexing?
Yeah, certainly. So through that process of gathering quality data within an organization, I will admit this is a process where we actually are leaning on a lot of traditional approaches. So we conduct focus groups, quality focus groups with a range of stakeholders across the business. We assess the documents, the data. We conduct surveys. A lot of these surveys are actually very standard classic surveys that are used by a range of providers. We just probably value the deployment of the surveys in terms of cost-wise at a much cheaper level because we're using our technology to apply them rather than relying on consultants to do so. We managed to reduce the cost significantly from some traditional providers. So I can see the next question there is, can I know the difference between DSS surveys? So DSS is DuPont Safety Solutions and Safe 365. In most cases, our surveys are actually very similar. However, the cost of applying Safe 365 as a solution, because we're deploying the technology, rather than embedding consultants within a business, businesses are paying for those consultants to be in their business from DuPont every day for weeks or months on end. We don't provide that cost. You pay for the technology, and we try to empower health and safety teams within organizations to conduct the surveys themselves, to gather the data with some support and advice from myself and my team. But we really try to reduce that consultancy overhead as part of the overall cost to a business, which, like I said at the very start, is trying to make this approach and access to safety culture programs more accessible for more businesses, or for those businesses who do have the budget to do really significant health and safety programs, to potentially deploy the technology at a larger scale. So apply the technology across each division or multiple divisions to gain that more granular understanding across the business. But for both of these questions in the chat, the approach and how we collect the data and how we map the results of that data to our maturity framework within each of our elements is relatively straightforward and simple. That's actually the easy part in it. The hard part in a safety culture program is the analysing of the data and the development of a continuous improvement program and the implementation of the continuous improvement program. That's the part that really requires the expertise, the effort, and the support. We've tried to make the process of getting to that point a lot more streamlined and efficient by leveraging technology. So I hope that answers those questions online.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now it is time for say thanks, Mr. Jitu. Can you take over? Because time is up now. Before going, Jitu, I would like to say a few words about this entire webinar. Okay, why this kind of tools what you are using, you're going to enhance your worker safety, of course. Enormous of reduction of the injuries. There will lower insurance costs will be there, and you can improve the operational efficiency. And that proves that low downtime and fast incident responses for that. Sustainability, one of the people are talking about. These kind of tools help you to maintain sustainability. That means to track and reduce environmental impact as well. And of course, there is a lot of data visibility there. Once you have data with you, that data helps you to take data-driven decision making, which is very much important nowadays. So if you know this competitive world, the more you reduce the overhead expenses, including your insurance, everything, that give you more profit for your organization. So with just small words, I would like to know, invite Mr. Jitu to say a vote of thanks. Jituji? Can you please come in?
Madhuji, did you address me something?
Yeah. Vote of thanks, please.
Okay, thank you so much. All I have to say is what a wonderful thing we are really for here today. On behalf of the foundations, we are extremely grateful to all our philanthropists for their generous donations. Our keynote guest speaker, Mr. Anthony Bradstreet, the Chief Customer Officer of Safe 365. We cannot thank him enough for delivering such an outstanding presentation, highlighting, among all other things, the importance of digital safety and risk management platform. We are also indebted to all the delegates for attending this 40th outreach knowledge transfer session. Your active support is extremely important. Lastly, but not least, the friends, we invite you all to take time to visit the Foundation's website and complete the forms showing your willing interest to support the Foundations for the noble cause mission towards safer workplace and the community. No contributions are ever too small. Once again, thank you all for sparing your valuable time for so many in this late evening, and to our speaker in the middle of the night for making the event a great success. Madhuji, can we take one group picture of everybody? And if there is recording going on, we can switch it off. And as if people wish to socialize thereafter, please.
Yeah, I don't know how to disable the recording because first I'm not used to have these Zoom meetings.
If everybody goes, put your camera on, please, so everybody can be seeing each other.
Taken photograph.
With that, I think we can just socialize if you have time and not worried about missing your dinner and go to sleep. Alok ji, I was so impressed with the small video you posted in our group showing that elephant has so much sense, and you put it rightly, engineering sense, that he wanted to cross those electrical wires, and how diligently and carefully with this risk management, which Mr. Anthony Bradstreet shared with us, even the animals have that sense. So we as human beings need to learn lesson from. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anthony, you need to watch that little, very hardly a minute or so video, but tells a lot.
I shall. No, I look forward to seeing those. There's an awful lot of insights we can learn from the animal kingdom, I believe. Absolutely.
Good to see Professor Ramana Guruji.
Jitu, if I could, just a word of thanks to yourselves for having me as well. Thank you to your trustees, and thank you everyone for joining tonight's call. It's been a pleasure speaking with you tonight, and I do hope you all managed to take something useful from it into your lives and into your workplaces. To help your fellow colleagues. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you all. See you again. See you on for next upcoming okay shortly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Aditya ji, nice to meet with you. You are very impressive for what you do and what you shared briefly, but that touched the heart of our all for that short introduction of yourself. So look forward to hearing you more.
Absolutely. And like Anthony said, thank you for having us. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, man.
As you can see, I'm doing like an elephant ear. Too old. Right ear is totally gone. Left ear has only pinhole. But I enjoy seeing the young people, dynamism they have, with like Anthony shared with us. And we feel that the future, and you are all the asset for the nation.
Very good.
Okay. See you again. See you all. Bye.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jitu.
Thank you, and have a good night. Thank you, Anthony, for particularly for keeping awake throughout the night.
No worries at all. Thank you, Jitu. I am looking forward to having a sleep now. So thank you. I'll see you all another time. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care and be safe.